8 can't be here. So 8 has to be here in this box, which means these two cannot be 8 as well. It's so whimsical and jolly. Yeah, Pokemon music, it's very underrated. The thing with Pokemon is that Pokemon is like, obviously it's for kids, obviously it's nostalgia slop, obviously, you know, blah blah blah. But like, those older games were made by people who were making art, just like anybody else who makes any game, right? And I think that, you know, over time, the artistic aspects of the series have faded away and have become less and less emphasized as things became, you know, more corporate, you know, the biggest media franchise in the world, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of beautiful stuff. Why did I say beautiful weird? There's a lot of beautiful stuff in Pokemon. And I think dismissing all of it because it's like, you know, because the latest games have been bad is really short-sighted. Like, there's some amazing stuff in Pokemon. Um, Especially those older games. And the music is amazing. That's what I'm saying. 2D Pokemon has a genocide quality of a team doing as much as possible with basically nothing. Exactly. And, you know, then things became bigger. But I mean, those first two games, Red and Blue, are so unbelievably broken, but they're so interesting. Like they created a whole genre when they made Red and Blue because of like the choices that they decided to make, you know. They were just trying to make like an RPG. They were trying to make an interesting RPG with a quirky mechanic, and they created something brand new. And then Gold and Silver was like, okay, we're gonna throw everything at the wall because this is gonna be our grand finale or whatever. Um, and then they put the entire extra region in there, and then in Gen 3, you know, you know, they realize that this thing has staying power, and then they, you know, make things more marketable and everything like that. They lock into all the anime deals, and that's, I think, when it starts becoming more corporate, even though I have so much nostalgia for Gen 3 and I love Gen 3. It's just like, I think that is when things really started to make that change. But I think that the artistry and the beauty of it was really there until the switch to 3D, you know? So this is 5789. This is also 5789. I don't know if this will help me, but, you know, whatever. Thought I'd put it down. Do we know that 3 is here? Yeah, we do. We know that 3 is in this. We know that 3 is in this box somewhere because of, if this is 4, this one can't be 4, so this one has to be 6, so this is 3. So 3 is guaranteed to be in this box somewhere. And if this is 4, it would be 2 or 8, but the 4 would mean that this is 6 and this is 3. Yeah. Okay. I think it also helped that the 2D allowed for more dev time while trying to work around. Yeah, exactly. You know, you can go to. Hold on. So if we look up like Bulbasaur, right? If we look up Bulbasaur, and I go to the Gen 3 decks, let's say. No, hold on. Gen 4 decks. What about when they had different sprites for every like version of every game, right? So like Diamond, Pearl, Platinum has this sprite, Heart Gold, Soul Silver has this sprite. Why? I don't know, for no reason. They just felt like it. What if I go to like Vespiquen or whatever? Diamond, Pearl has this sprite, Platinum, Heart Gold, Soul Silver has this sprite. They just redid all the sprites for no reason. Different variations on gender. all of them in black and white, they're like moving around like crazy because they're super in black and white, they like redid all of the sprites again and they gave them all like bespoke animations and they're all like just moving around and they're alive and they're, you know, bouncing around the screen. Or like you look at friggin' Pokemon Crystal. Pokemon Crystal having the like the unique bespoke animations for every single Pokemon entering the battle. And then in Emerald, they brought back the animations, but they made them a lot more simplified. But in Crystal, like every single Pokemon has like 3 to 8 extra frames of animation just for when it enters battle. Just for fun. Just because they thought it would be cool. Like, and it was. It's awesome. It's super cool. Black was your first game? That's totally fair. That's a great game. Black 2 is maybe my favorite in the series, or White 2, maybe my favorite in the series. That's the one that I actually played. White 2 is just so jam-packed with features, and everything that is good about modern Pokemon came from Black 2, White 2, and everything that's bad about modern Pokemon came from X and Y. It's very interesting how that works. Everything that people love about modern Pokemon in terms of quality of life is almost everything originated in Black 2, White 2. Like, for instance, the Shiny Charm, Black 2, White 2. Critical Captures, Black 2, White 2. Repel asking you if you want to, like, spray a new one when it runs out. That was Black 2, White 2. The text being really fast was Black and White 1. But, like, also Black 2, White 2. Like, there was all this stuff with, like, Join Avenue. Like, you could, like, mix, like the mixing record system was, like, at its peak there. Those games were great. My passion for this is awesome. Yeah, I care about Pokemon. I love Pokemon. You may have heard. There's this essay that somebody wrote like a couple years ago. There's this essay here where somebody wrote way too much about this series. Somebody, I don't know who wrote this, probably some loser or whatever. But somebody wrote all this stuff talking about what needs to happen with Pokemon. And I just want to point out, by the way, that not only was this essay correct in every way, it was also so correct that the Pokemon Company took my ideas. You hear about this game? You hear about this little game that everybody loves? That's out of stock. Everybody loves it so much that it's out of stock. Pokopia. I suggest making this game 3 years ago when I wrote that essay. 2.5 years ago when I wrote that essay. I'm like, why is there no Stardew Valley base building Pokemon game? Why does that not exist? It's like the freest idea you could possibly imagine. Where you're building like a farm and a habitat for these guys. It's a great idea. I wrote that down. You know what else I wrote down? I was like, why don't we have, which they revealed like today. I was like, why don't we have Pokemon Showdown, which is just like a battle simulator or whatever. Why don't we have a Pokemon Showdown that's official, where you can just say, I want a Gardevoir with all of the stats trained or whatever, so that I can use it. Why can't you just do that? Why is it, in order to get into competitive Pokemon, which they put so much effort into, they put so much effort into VGC, they put so much effort into all of the events, when you need to spend like 30 hours per Pokemon breeding the eggs and then getting the EVs and then getting the IVs, or getting the IVs and doing the breeding and getting your 6 IV Japanese Ditto from some Redditor who probably hacked it in, and then you breed all the Pokemon and then you make sure they have the Destiny knot, but oh no, you didn't get the egg moves, so then you gotta get the egg moves, you gotta look up the egg groups, and you gotta figure out, okay, in order to get Fire Punch, I need to get like a Magmar, but the Magmar that I need to get Fire Punch from has to be specifically from Platinum, because there was a move tutor in Platinum that could teach it Fire Punch, so you gotta teach it Fire Punch, and then you gotta transfer it up to Black and White, so you gotta play the stupid Safari minigame, and then you gotta transfer it up to X and Y, through Pokemon, like whatever. I don't even remember what it was called. The Poke Transfer Protocol. I don't remember. And then you got to transfer it up to Pokemon Bank, and then you got to get it out of Pokemon Bank in like Pokemon Home, which these are two separate subscriptions, and then you have to upgrade, you have to like pass the Pokemon through the Pokemon Home checks, and it might tell you that your Pokemon's hacked because it's got a weird move because you had to bring it back from Platinum. And you got to do all this stuff, and it takes you like 80 hours, not to mention the fact that you had to breed this guy in one of those games if you want one of those moves, and it's not an egg move. And back then, you didn't have Destiny Knot, which was a Black 2, White 2 feature, by the way. Destiny Knot, which passes down 5 of the perfect IVs to the Pokemon. You didn't have that back then. So you got to be breeding a billion eggs. God forbid you want it shiny. It takes you a billion years to get one Pokemon, and then you EV train it, which is a very fiddly and annoying process. You got to keep track. You got to have like pen and paper, make sure, write down how many Poochyenas you killed to know how many speed stats you got distributed or whatever. You got to do all that, and then you turn up to the VGC, and like, turns out the other guy that was next to you, they trained their version of the exact same Pokemon because they also did this. They probably hacked it in, but they also did this, you know, allegedly. They trained it to have like, they put like 3 of the stat points in defense so that if they go against exactly your Pokemon and then you have like a 15 out of 16 damage range to not kill them, and then you don't get it, and then you lose because like they did like 15 extra like math equations to balance it out. Why can't there just be a slider? Why can't there just be, this is the Pokemon, let me just adjust the sliders and then try it out? Because that's how Pokemon Showdown works. And tons of people play Pokemon Showdown, and they've been doing it for like 15 years. Ever since I heard about Pokemon Showdown. So I was like, why don't we have that? Why don't we have an official thing? It's literally a money printer, okay? Like if you charge like for like a membership or something to get Pokemon, or like, I don't know, they could figure out like some non-predatory monetization for this. It would be the easiest thing in history. And that way, you also don't have to keep, this is my thesis of the essay, if you have this application, you don't have to keep the turn-based combat that has been in the game since 1995 or whatever. You don't have to keep that in the main series because people are sick of the turn-based RPGs, and people keep clowning on Pokemon for having turn-based battles that have been the same for 20 years. You can change it. If you take this competitive stuff out, you can just change it. Anyways, sorry. I have a lot of thoughts about Pokemon, as you may have seen from me scrolling down my paper. We got to lock in, by the way. We got to lock in.